understand it. I think we're doomed to repeat it even if we do understand it. The cycles of history, the cycles of human endeavor, the rise and the fall, the grandeur and the folly, the reach and the fall, all of them are inherently human and perhaps inherently unavoidable. But why am I talking about history? Am I talking about history because I'm just on a weird history kick? Yeah, that's it. I'm rewatching The Crown because tomorrow the final little piece of that Netflix drama is coming out. And rewatching The Crown made me think to rewatch From the Earth to the Moon and Band of Brothers, both of which, to be honest, I like more than The Crown, and I also think are more important and impactful, chronicling far more important, impactful episodes in history, Western history, I suppose, more specifically, but still world history at that level. And it strikes me the disillusionment that we are currently facing that is, I think, inherently a Western ideal, a Western mind virus, pathogen, whatever you want to call it, a Western meme. It's something that is very strange, and it, I suppose, always harkens back to this imagined ideal of a Western golden age. The sort of the track of history in the West is always sort of like there was a peak and there was a dip and now we're rising, and we usually think we're on that rise, but we're always looking back to that peak in the past. We're always looking back to that golden age of Greece, of Rome, of some, when we were in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, we were looking back at the mythological age of heroes. Now we're looking back and we're saying, oh man, the 50s were great. We're saying, oh man, the 80s were great. I mean, how many shows are coming out that are just like absolute fantasies, masturbatory, about how fantastic the 80s were. Uncountable. And there is something to be said for that. There is something to look at in those shows that does perhaps play at, that does perhaps hint at things that we've lost. But inherently it is looking at an idealized past that I suppose never really existed. The question is, of course, is that better than the alternative? Because the alternative exists and we know it and we see it. The Eastern view of history is just a circle, cycles. It's a wheel. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're on the bottom, but it keeps going and it keeps moving and keeps moving and keeps moving and keeps moving and keeps moving. Turning, 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 turning. And whether you're on the top or the bottom is just a factor of history. It has nothing to do with anything. I find that an empty view of life and history and human endeavor. I prefer the inaccurate view, and both of these views are inaccurate, of course, but I prefer the inaccurate view of the West. The inaccurate view of the West, in which at the very least we think there's a rise. We think there is at the very least an increase. There are, of course, drops, but you can get out of those drops. I prefer that. I think that's better. Both of these are, of course, imperfect and inaccurate, incorrect. If you look at ancient Greece to ancient Rome was far superior to ancient Greece. But they never thought they were. They always thought they were, at best, barely approaching the heights of ancient Greece. Right now, at best, we look back on the past, and I would say right now, we look back on the past in terms of civilization as a complete and total calamity. Just a complete worthless endeavor, and we should have stayed as hunter-gatherers. And we would have all been better off for it. Of course, that's not the case. As much as British sailors and philosophers who traveled to Tahiti in the 1700s idealized that society, they did not recognize the fact that that society was so fragile that literally their arrival, a couple British sailors and a couple missionaries, destroyed their entire society. That level of fragility in a society, in a culture, is inherently unstable and inherently unsustainable. If it hadn't been them, it would have been any other number of things. It would have been a big wave. A big tidal wave would have completely annihilated that entire culture. Because the idea of civilization and culture and history is something that is a through line. It's something that takes you from all the way back in the mythical past, of which there are realistically probably no records. And you can trace your way to now. It's worthwhile to know that you exist because of that whole line of history, that entire progression of human endeavor, suffering, of pain, of pleasure, of joy, of achievement, of failure. You are here now because of that. And as much as we don't like to acknowledge it, we have a responsibility to that past history, to our ancestors, move forward. And I don't think most people want to do that. I think if the metaverse or whatever, if someone developed a really good virtual reality, do you think you would step outside of your pod? I don't think I would. I think I would stay in there. I think I would live the rest of my life in total isolation. And I don't know if that's because of my own personality. In part, I think it is. I think I'm a naturally stoic, hermit-ish kind of person. But I also think that there is a cultural programming that has been stitched in that makes me wary of continuing the experiment of Western civilization. Makes it inherently ugly to consider moving forward with the things that whole line of human endeavor, achievement, failure, pain, pleasure, joy, sadness, happiness led to in producing me. I think there's something subconsciously, spiritually vacant with that endeavor. And therefore it is something that I, again, subconsciously recoil from. I don't want to do it. Even if, rationally, I know that it is right, good, necessary. I don't believe that it is correct. Now, am I capable of rewriting my own internal view of history? Can I read the right books? Look at the right art? And totally reprogram myself? Or am I stuck in the matrix of apathy, antipathy, and apostasy? I'm trying to think of another word. I can't think of one. I was really trying to wrap that up with a beautiful statement of alliteration, but I couldn't do it. I apologize. I abase myself at your abetments. Terrible ending. Possibly good content. Merry also, I don't know what holidays you're celebrating, so. Also, if you've made it this far, what is your Christmas dinner? Do you have Christmas flavors? I was actually trying to think about this earlier. This is completely unrelated to anything that I've said before, but I can't think of anything that I really consider a Christmas flavor, except maybe eggnog. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Like Thanksgiving, I can definitely think of things. Halloween, I can think of things. Christmas, I got nothing. So, if you want to confuse everyone, and you've listened to this point, pop your Christmas dinner into the comments. And I'll know you're a real OG. Otherwise, good luck in all your endeavors. Thank you for tuning in. And goodbye for now.